Vida, um livro que sabemos como se inicia, mas que desconhecemos o seu percurso. Cada um de nós vivencia realidades como de nossa personagem, Natahas Icks, uma jovem que nascida na cidade de Oakland, no estado da Califórnia. Uma mulher que reconhece a sua peculiaridade. É birracial, fruto de casamento interracial entre sua mãe, Natahas Icks, representante da comunidade negra, e o seu pai, Icks.
I definitely consider myself biracial. My father is Caucasian, he's white. My mom is African American, she's black.
Como ela reconhece hoje, se enxerga muito mais como negra.
So when I was growing up, it's interesting because people always look at you from the outside. So they would look at me and I have a lighter skin tone, but I look like a black woman. So they would always ask me if I was adopted. Like they could never put it together that my father was biologically my father.
Natasha has always been very focused and in a way very serious about her life. Of course, she's had, and she's enjoyed her life.
Natasha teve uma infância conturbada, frequentou a igreja, buscava ser uma boa aluna na escola, mas um aspecto a abalava: a distância de sua mãe.
I was surrounded by love, I played sports, I did well in school. And on the other hand, I had a lot of emotions that I didn't know how to work through. And a lot of that did stem from not having my mom as a really consistent, present person the way I wanted her to be.
Algo que a levou a um estado de depressão. Nesse período, em 2 episódios, tensionou acabar com tal sofrimento. Aos 9 anos, ao ter uma faca em sua posse, identificou nos pulsos o caminho para findar com esse martírio. Não conseguiu.
I remember watching my little brother and my stepmom together, and there was just a moment, this just pure love between the two of them that was so beautiful, but at the same time, I felt so empty because I really, really wanted that in my life. And at 9 years old, I didn't know how to put it into words. I didn't even fully understand what I was feeling. I just knew there was a part of me that felt like I wasn't good enough, not good enough to have my mom every weekend, not good enough to have the love that I really wanted. And that's what led to that first attempt.
Porém, aos 17, optou por uma estratégia diferente. Ingeriu pílulas para dormir. E o seu destino foi uma sala de emergência de um hospital. Na sequência, uma psiquiatria.
Now fast forward to when I was 17 years old, and that's when I actually tried. And at this point, you're growing up, you have life experiences. So I had been through, things at school. I had just had a variety. I got pregnant young. I got pregnant at 16, and I really wanted to keep the child. And just some things happened. I was living with my mom for the first time since I was 3 years old. And she pretty much told me that if I was to keep the child, I couldn't stay there. And I spent a few months staying at friends' homes and trying to figure it out. And finally, at 4 months pregnant, I decided to get an abortion because I didn't know what else to do. And I just felt so guilty because at the end of the day, regardless of what my mom said, regardless of what went on at home, that was my decision. And I felt like I made the wrong one. And me struggling with just that feeling of guilt and depression and sadness and not being mature enough to know how to shift my mindset and my perspective, I took a bottle of sleeping pills. I took the rest of them, I think it was 6 or 7 of them in there, took the sleeping pills, and I ended up in the emergency room and then in a mental institution.
Existe ditado que diz que depois de uma densa tempestade é vindoura uma bonança. No caso de Natasha, o mar continuou revolto. No principiar de sua fase adulta, novos percalços surgiram.
I had no idea just how challenging and what she had gone through.
So after the suicide attempt, I realized that whatever came up and whatever came my way, I was no longer going to try to end my life. So that was going to be something that I would have to find a different way to cope with my emotions. In the following years, the 2 years afterwards, I was homeless for about 2 years. I was struggling with addiction to ecstasy pills, to weed, to alcohol. I wasn't on any like super strong drugs, but at the end of the day, I was stuck in this fog, and I was sleeping on buses and sleeping in coffee shops. And when I was 18, I was able to purchase a car, and I started sleeping in there. And I just was not mature enough yet to realize that the only person who could change my life was me.
Mas como ocorre com uma parcela expressiva de mulheres, a vida apresentou-lhe a maternidade em meio a uma realidade perniciosa onde a violência era nítida e o risco de vida também, conceber uma filha, que provocou-lhe uma reflexão. Será mesmo que gostaria de ter uma criança em um ambiente assim?
When I was growing up, my mom always lived in motels, which was why it was difficult for her to have me there long term. And with my daughter, I was just determined for her to come into a more stable environment. So I made sure from the time I got pregnant with her up until now with her at 14 years old, that she always has her own room, her own space, and that I'm there every step of the way. Always, like with my grandmother, I went to church when I was younger. I always was involved with God spiritually in the church, outside of the church. I prayed. But when I was at my lowest points, when I was attempting suicide, when I was homeless, when I was out on the streets, God became my best friend. So it was less about going into a church to worship Him and more about me realizing that He not only is with me every step of the way, but that He's a part of me as well. And that if I'm connected to Him, then I also have that power within me. So my real turning point was, one, realizing that I have control over my life and that I can't blame anyone else. It doesn't matter what happened to my mom, with my mom. At the end of the day, it's up to me to create the life that I want to live. And the second part was, again, when I had my daughter, and just realizing that it was up to me to make sure that my daughter didn't have the same struggles that I had growing up.
Mas a vida não é somente de dissabores. Eis que ela descobre o emprego de seus sonhos: ser uma cabeleireira. Aos 25 anos, lança-se a um gigantesco desafio: abrir o seu primeiro salão de beleza, o Share Passion, uma maneira que encontrara para focalizar no futuro de sua filha. A fé em Deus e os livros de autoajuda foram preponderantes para essa reconstrução.
Manifesting and creating this hair salon was all a part of that process. From the time that I decided I was not going to be on drugs, I was going to make sure I had somewhere to stay, and I was going to take control of my life, I was constantly on a journey of trying to elevate, trying to go further, and trying to go higher, and trying to be better than I was the day before.
Como o poeta declarou, a vida é uma roda viva, e nessas voltas que ela dá, um novo caminho aparece. O seu esposo, o dominicano, Estevan, que a conheceu pela internet. Há 8 anos, com uma sedimentada parceria, novos planos foram estabelecidos.
I'm just amazed as we, continue to grow our relationship together and grow our family. And she just continues to inspire me to do more.
Germinara no coração de ambos o anseio de prestar um trabalho à comunidade. A partir de seu talento como cabeleireira, Natahas desenvolveu um relacionamento com os moradores de rua, transformando-os não apenas esteticamente.
There's two parts to it. So one part is, of course, the physical, the transformation. So often we're judged on how we're seen. So being able to clean somebody up, you know, maybe their hair hasn't been combed in 6 months and it's all over the place, and to have them leaving feeling good and looking good is reward enough in itself. But there's also the other part that we are connecting with people who are used to their presence being a bother. That when they speak to somebody, it's an irritation. That to ask for money or for help, they're ignored. So to be able to just sit down and look somebody in the eye and have a regular conversation, let them know that they're loved, they're seen, and they're heard, that's the part that touches my heart more. So what we do is sometimes we'll go out just on the sidewalk and we'll bring a generator and clippers and we do haircuts, literally just outside. Other times we partner with actual shelters and we go in and we provide haircuts for the men, women, and children. We do teen centers, and we've even gone into a local hospital where they were doing a prom for the children that are terminally and chronically ill. And we did beautiful little hairstyles for the girls and just made them feel good to let them have a moment in a day where they got to forget about their situations and just enjoy life.
I had always loved the way that my life gave back to the community. And so when she started doing the haircut for Hearts, I was very intrigued, and I was trying to find a way for myself to contribute. And so I went along with her to just really help make what we call them hygiene bags for the homeless. So it meant a lot to me, and it really touched my heart to be able to help out, you know, an underserved community. And just being there with her, watching her engage with this community. And, you know, obviously she did their hair, but watching her give so much really inspired me to try to do some of that myself.
You know, I have learned to just provide the space and allow people to speak and open up with what they're comfortable with. Because some things can be really touchy subject, things that you would normally ask, like, do you have children? Are you married? Those things can bring up so much pain. And in me kind of sitting back and letting people show up with what they want to share, I have heard the most amazing stories, and really quite sad. There was one young lady, she was, she looked really young, maybe 19, 20. And she was telling me how her mother had committed suicide, and she found her mom at, I think, 9 or 10 years old. And then when she was living with her grandmother, and then her grandmother passed away, she found her grandmother as well. Then she got on drugs and different things, just trying to numb the pain she was going through, and she got pregnant. She wasn't able to stop the drugs, so she went into the hospital, gave birth to the baby, and that baby was taken away from her. She had been through so much pain, she couldn't even take it, and came halfway across the country to San Francisco, really just unable to confront the demons of her past. And it wasn't that I was able to give her any steps to change or anything like that, but just allowing her a space to speak openly and with no judgment. There was another man whose hair I was cutting, and he had this scar, a fresh scar, on the side of his head. And I asked him what happened because I needed to be careful when I was doing the haircut. He had gotten out from the hospital literally that morning, and he had found out that he had brain cancer. So he had tumors in his brain. I don't know if it was operable or not, but it was terminal. And a lot of that stuff comes from years and years of drug abuse. And he just wanted to cut his hair off because I suppose they were starting him on chemo, and he wanted to kind of beat them to the punch. And the last story I'll share was this lady, and we were talking, and she was saying how she had 6 or 7 children, all of them taken in the system because she was on drugs and couldn't care for her children. Some were taken at the hospital, some were taken a few years into, their lives at 2 or 3 years old. And one of her children, one of her sons, had found her online, had bought a ticket to bring her out to where he was. I guess he lived in another state. And she really wanted to go. She had never seen him in his adult life. And she was so high on drugs, she couldn't bring herself to get on to get on the train to go over there. And she just, she was upset and she cried, and I just rubbed her back and I told her that it was going to be okay. And it may be jumping around a bit, but I do want to add to the last story about the man who had found out about the brain cancer. One of the things that we talked about when he shared his story was, I said, well, what are you going to do? Have you reached out to your family? Have you told them? And he was like, no, I've messed up too much with them. I'm not going to let them know. And we talked for almost 20 minutes with me trying to convince him that no matter what, you want your family to know what's going on with you. You don't want, God forbid, for you to pass away and they don't even know what happened. At the end of it all, we're all human. We make our mistakes. At least reach out and give them the chance for you guys to heal those wounds and to reconnect. And he promised me when he left that he would at least call his daughter and he would call his mom to let them know what was going on with him.
Mas então veio o vírus, que modificou a história do mundo, a Covid-19, forçando-a a repensar os seus projetos. E com isso, novas oportunidades surgiram. Um curso online voltado para as mulheres, cujo objetivo não é zelar a pena pelos seus cabelos, mas também da área emocional.
It was great to have this time to really go down memory lane, but not just for the point of bringing up old memories, but specifically to show women through examples how you can go from point A where you are to point B where you want to be. How you can take every single challenge that you go through and use that as an opportunity to propel you to your destiny and to where you want to be. And so the online program is really in alignment with the same thing. I sat down, I spent months working on this. I sat down and created a step-by-step guide with exercises, journaling projects that the ladies have to do, a few, videos and all these different things, right? And the purpose of it all is to help women heal from their past, to help women identify what they've been through, to figure out how it makes them stronger and how they can use these things to get them to their destiny. I truly believe we all deserve to live a life that we are wildly obsessed with. A life should never be average. So if you're not there yet, I wanted to show women how to create that.
Seus familiares em uníssonos a denominam como a mulher que não para. Natasha, sem qualquer contestação, está transcrevendo páginas de muito sucesso.
Tosh thought about writing a book when she was a teenager. When she was 13, she started speaking about writing her own book. She always loved to read.
The fact that the world is a better, fuller, richer place for having her in it is of the absolute utmost importance, and I think that's the highest goal that a person can achieve in their life. And she has already achieved that, and she's only 34. So by the time she makes it to 100, she'll have that much more to offer the world, and the world will be that much further along for having her in it.
Hoje é coach e também autora de best-seller, cujo título indica-nos como podemos classificar a sua vida.
To me, when I think of Tosh, I always see movement. She's constantly moving and moving towards something that uplifts.
Superação.
Unstoppable woman.
Natasha, a mulher que não para.
You can overcome anything that you go through. Challenges are a part of life. We're all going to go through different difficulties, but the purpose is to grow through what you go through. So figure out, learn the lessons, figure out how you overcame, make your own life better, and then once you get to that new level, you have to reach back and help other people up, because our lives can never be just about us. Our life's mission can never be just about us. It's always about the other people that we connect with and the other people's lives that we go out to change.